Hey guys, decided to finally do a video again. I've been threatening on doing some thoughts on construction productivity for a while. Haven't done a video, I've wrote a couple posts on it, but I decided to finally put some pen to paper and put some voice to audio and video and talk about construction productivity. Again, if you like these videos, subscribe, leave comments on what you think of what I have to say because it's not a definitive voice, it's just a couple words. I'm going to call this the trilemma of construction productivity. Before I go into this, I really want to talk about, let's say, productivity and efficiency, because in this discussion, I'm going to use these terms a bit synonymously because I'm going to view them as the same. Some people view them as slightly different, but for this purpose, they're going to be exactly the same. Efficiency, doing something in a shorter period of time for the same quality of output, well, if you do that, your productivity is going to go up. So if you increase your efficiency, you're increasing your productivity. And conversely, I'm going to assume that, well, if you increase your productivity, you're doing that through some increased efficiency. There are some different ways to achieve it, but for this discussion, that's a good enough example. Let's dive right into what the trilemma is about. And it's about three issues. Because inside construction, you've got owners, you've got engineers, and you've got contractors. And each of them is going to have their own view of what they think construction productivity is, as well as the ways that you improve it are going to be different for each one of those parties because they're doing different functions. So let's sort of go look at each one. Owners. Owners care about capital efficiency. They don't really care about how long a contractor is going to take to do something. They don't really care about an engineer spending money on something. They care about building a facility and how much money are they spending per quantity of output that that facility is going to generate. It's a pretty simple measure, and this is what business analysts inside owners, inside development companies, this is what they look at. How much money are you going to spend for unit of output that you're going to create. Now, this isn't operating cost, this is purely just the construction capital. Obviously, when you go into manufacturing and some other issues, there's huge operating maintenance issues you got to go look at. This is just the capital cost. That's my world, construction. Engineers. Engineers care about engineering productivity. Most of my career I'm spent in this, let's say, EPC, PCM world where we're dealing with engineering, and so this is my bread and butter. We live on productivity measurements. We have our three-part curves where we've got some measure of progress. We have our staffing. This is hours estimated or forecast against actuals. And then we know that our productivity is earned divided by burn. So here's like your earned progress up here. This is how much you've burned. Put it together, you get some productivity measure. We do this every week, all the time, and these curves really tell you how you're doing for ensuring productivity. Although, as I mentioned in this little tip, this is all based upon a budget man hours that you've set. If you change your budget man hours, well, then you can change your productivity. And I'm not quite sure that that's a good measure when you can do it in that sense. So it's more like an estimate accuracy, not really an engineering productivity. I would actually think that engineering should be focusing on what I'm going to call engineering efficiency. Again, communicating these two terms, they're the same thing. I'm just using a different word. This is now what percent of a capital cost on a job are you actually spending on engineering? So if you're building $1 billion plant, are you spending $100 million on engineering? Or are you spending $50 million on engineering? You're more than likely spending between 5 and 10% on your engineering projects. But is that number percent going down when you do your next plant and your next plant and your next plant? That is your measure for how, is engineering actually improving? And these are metrics that are usually tossed around in feasibility studies because you do use some assumptions. Oh, yeah, we can probably do it as good or better than the prior project. Contractors, they've got different views. These guys are actually pouring concrete. So they care about how many hours does it actually take to go build something. So if they're doing a 100 cubic yard pour, then they're going to do some metrics on there of how many man hours is it going to take to do that. And we're actually going to track that. So that's one of the things, even in management space, you're looking at how many man hours is it taking to produce some level of construction, something or other. tons of steel, cubes of earthworks, cubes of concrete, meters of pipe. Those are sort of things. We always look at it in terms of hours per unit for some measure of productivity. We do this all the time, but the measures don't really increase very much because perhaps we're not looking at it in the right way. And that's really where this whole discussion of why is construction productivity not increasing, it's lots of reasons, but nonetheless, I just want to frame it in the concept of that these three entities have different views of productivity. So, what's the trilemma? Well, the issue is that all three of these entities, you can't increase the productivity for all of them. If an owner wants to make a step change in their plant, they're going to have to spend more money on engineering. And because that step change might require new construction processes, your contractor is going to be inefficient because they haven't done that before. That's the whole issue, why you can't pull everybody up. So why do you not see construction productivity going on? Well, it's because your owners are always requiring step changes in their plants. So now we've talked about what productivity might be for each one of the entities. Let's actually look at what they actually want. Well, owners, they really care about the construction productivity because it's, they're going to spend more. So they want to spend less and they want to get more. And that's pretty simple. So that actually aligns to their capital efficiency measures or their productivity measures. So it matters to them. But engineers, not so much. A lot of engineering contracts are just time and material contracts, and where the engineer is actually going to care about just billing more man hours. So their concepts of being more productive, they don't really have incentives to do that. Or conversely, when the client asks for potentially step changes in a plant, changing a throughput might require additional engineering that's going to ruin their efficiency. Again, they love doing that. Engineers love to make things efficient. They just need more hours. So they like to bill hours. Contractors care about making money. That's pretty simple. Obviously, all these entities care about making money, but the thing is that because of contractual relationships, they might not be allowed to. They might just have a lump sum contract. And if they're forced to do something in an efficient way, they're not going to be very happy because they're not going to be making money off of it. And they're not going to be very productive as it is on it as well. So the conclusion of this, now I didn't want to get too much into details because I really want people to engage in these discussions. So I really want to put this framework out there that you do have these entities involved and the concept of productivity for each one of them is going to be different. You've got owners looking at capital productivity, you've got engineers looking at engineering productivity, and you've got construction looking at hours per installed quantity of something on site. So when you put these all together, perhaps you can get good discussions and understand the trilemma of if you want to improve your capital efficiency, you might be impacting somebody else down the chain. Where this all fits together is that in the McKinsey world, they have so many great publications, and they actually do have a paper on construction productivity. And they talk about 7 levers that they can use, that people can use to increase construction productivity. Reshaping regulation, contractual frameworks, rethinking engineering, improving procurement supply chain, on-site execution, digital technology, reskilling the workforce. Now, what's interesting is that when you look at these and then you put that into the framework, is this something that an owner is doing? Is this something that the engineer construction management company is doing? Is this something that the contractor is doing? And that's really the value. So when you talk about reskilling the workforce, owners are not really going to care very much about reskilling their workforce. Maybe if they're doing some new operating procedures, but for engineering and construction, that's really what matters. On-site execution, again, clients don't care. On-site execution is going to be your engineer construction management company. Supply chain management, exactly the same. That's what your engineer and construction management is going to talk about. Contractual framework, that is really driven by owners. Regulation, really driven by owners. And even, you almost say zero, the concept of are we building the same thing? Do we have good standards that can be replicated in the future so that we do get some efficiency going forwards? Anyway, that's it for this little video on construction productivity. definitely subscribe, leave some comments, follow me on LinkedIn. And I really like doing these. I'm sorry I've not done very many recently, but alas, maybe a couple more in the future, and I definitely got this one out the door. So thanks a lot, guys.